Okay, watch fans, first, let's get one thing straight. This is not a review. This is not intended to help you make a buying decision. If you're spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars based on what I say, you don't need another product review. You need a therapist. Because in this high-end watch world, what we have is this weird inversion of practicality. We're obsessed with objects whose basic function, whose defining characteristic is telling the time. And yet we routinely buy things for thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars that are humiliatingly outperformed by a $50 Casio. So what we're talking about here is no mere watch. We're talking about a timepiece. And we're not talking about utility. We're talking about art, the symbolic, the ritualistic, the expressive, the entertaining. And the Swatch Blancpain Scuba 50 Fathoms collab is not a watch. It is a beautifully executed three-dimensional cultural critique. Let's get into it after the intro. Hi, welcome back to my channel, Amateur Hour Watches. I'm Pete McConville. If you like to overthink, overanalyze, and just geek out on watches far too much to be healthy, you're in exactly the right place. Now we're going to talk about the Swatch Blancpain 50 Fathoms collab. And before you can understand this watch, before you can get the joke, you have to have some context. Let's start with Swatch. Swatch was born in 1983 as a defiant plastic-cased second watch. That is what Swatch means. It is fun, affordable, disposable. But zeitgeist shift, times move on, attitudes change. In 2024, plastic and disposable carry a much different, much darker, much heavier environmental weight than they did back in 1983. Swatch, a brand built on volume and ephemerality, has an existential problem in 2024. How do you stay fun, affordable, and plastic while being even remotely responsible today? Swatch's answer to that problem is bioceramic. It's actually quite an elegant fudge. It is still 1/3 biosourced grown plastic from castor oil seeds, I believe, and 2/3 zirconium oxide or dioxide, i.e. ceramic. Now, this material is certainly not going to stop the ice caps melting. It is not going to eliminate landfill. However, it is, to be honest, a genuine step forward. There's certainly less drilling, which is always good. And what material is left over is absolutely bio-neutral. It has precisely zero toxic chemicals within it, and it won't leach into the groundwater. So it's not the best thing in the world, but it's a long way away from the worst and better than it would have otherwise been. So Swatch has their answer for their new plastic moving forward. It needs a party to bring it out so that everyone knows it exists and why it's so important. And it didn't get one. You know, when Swatch first introduced bioceramic, it sank like a stone. No one even knew it existed. So Swatch went back to the drawing board and went nuclear, coming up with a way of making sure we paid attention to this new material. And that nuclear option was the Moon Swatch. What it showed was that linking this better plastic to a Swatch Group legend was absolutely catnip, not just to collectors, but frankly, to the world. Now, obviously, the success of the Moon Swatch was a great thing. Swatch made a bunch of money out of it. But Swatch also gave Swatch a problem. You see, to meet the demand, Swatch had to open new production lines, get more machinery on board, employ some more people. And inevitably, demand for the Moon Swatch began to tail off. So they needed another product to come in and take up the slack. It doesn't have to be a new Moon Swatch. In fact, we don't want a new Moon Swatch. We don't want something that big because then we have to just keep building more and more factories. We just need something that just taps the wheel, keeps it spinning, and keeps production, keeps the yields of our new machines up in a nice economical place. The 50 Fathoms also does something else. Swatch, I think, held their breath when the first moon swatch came out, nervous about what would the impact be on demand of the original moon watch. And I think everyone was shocked when the response was so positive, and that people actually, rather than shy away from the moon swatch, actually went towards it. Moon watch sales increased on the back of moon swatch hysteria. And I think Swatch has learnt from that and wants to harness something similar, bringing a little bit of modern cultural, modern zeitgeist attention to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, because God knows that Blancpain brand needs every piece of help it can get. Okay, so it's at this point that the good idea of having a Swatch collaboration with Blancpain with the 50 Fathoms turns from being a smart business choice and enters the realm of cynical artistic genius, because they didn't just take the look of the Blancpain diver. What Swatch has done here is reached much deeper, and they've captured the essence, the ritual, the art of the 50 Fathoms. Whether you're talking the case shape, the domed bezel, the dial layout, the name on the side of the case, it's all there. But they didn't even stop there. It goes right down past those superficial details into tiny nods that only real geeks would understand or appreciate. So for example, the straps are secured via hex screws, just like the Blancpain. We get no radiations logos. We get moisture indicators on specific models. There are all these little Easter eggs hidden away, symbols of the past wrapped in a plastic shell. And the movement, it's an automatic System 51 cleverly skirting around Blancpain's sacred pledge that there will never be a quartz Blancpain. The letter of the law has definitely been respected, even if the spirit is, well, a little bioceramic. One of the versions takes that joke even further, a fantastic subversion of expectations with the Ocean of Storms edition. The Ocean of Storms is the version of the Blancpain which looks the most like the Sirius Black $15,000 Blancpain, and it's named after a lunar mare, an ocean on the moon, i.e. the one that looks the most like a real watch isn't named after a real ocean. The most aesthetically faithful version of this watch, the one closest to the real thing, is named after an ocean on a completely different world. What you have is a subtle and almost academic joke about the disconnect between an object and its symbolic weight. This is a meta critique wrapped up in an ephemeral and wearable fashion piece. And the joke didn't end there. Flip the watch over and it keeps on going. Any normal dive watch, gives you something on the back. Maybe it's an octopus, maybe it's a shark, maybe it's a dolphin. What did Swatch give us? They gave us a nudibranch, a brightly coloured, joyous, flamboyant sea slug. It's a stroke of inspired genius, a perfect playful counterpoint to the watch's serious dive watch facade. The clear rotor exposes a surprisingly detailed and very colourful movement underneath. It's always fun to look at, and it turns the back of the watch into a whimsical miniature, very affordable piece of deep sea art. And for all the noise about this being cheap plastic, the aesthetic finish is actually impeccable. The printing quality, the typeface choices, the crispness of the markers actually stands up to a macro lens infinitely better than a lot of $500 to $800 entry-level Tissot's, Seiko's, Orients, etc. Okay, so now I want to get to the bit of why I can be so excited about a watch that makes so many other YouTube folk really unhappy. Why do I think this watch is fantastic when so many other people think it's horrendously flawed? I think what it comes down to is I understand what it is to be a Swatch and they don't. They are like people complaining about their Ferrari not having enough ISOFIX points for their baby seat. They're people that are complaining that their new sports car doesn't come with a tow bar so they can take their U-Haul trailer somewhere. This is a Swatch. This is a second or third or fourth or 100th watch. It is a piece of fun. It is a serious mistake to think that it is a serious watch. The minute someone compares this to an utterly worthy but utterly dull micro brand 1950s simulacrum, they have lost the point of this piece. They don't understand what it is supposed to be and they don't understand how to critique it. And now let's talk about this obsession with serviceability and the System 51 movement. Frankly, it's a moot point. The modern reality of owning a low-end mechanical movement in 2025 is that that movement will not be serviced. If you've got a Seiko with a 4-arm movement, you've got a Citizen with a Miyota 9000, you've got a Tissot with a Powermatic movement. You know what? According to some people, you've even got an Omega with one of their modern coaxial movements. There is every probability that that watch, that movement will never be serviced. You take it into an AD, they will simply take the movement out and they will replace the whole thing. The fetishization of repairability is really just an intellectual conceit, totally detached from the reality of owning really any watch under a couple of $1,000s in 2025. Which brings me back to the idea that the Swatch 50 Fathoms has no intention, has never been designed to be a serious watch in the way it's being assessed. The reason it is so successful, the reason it is so wonderful is precisely because it is not. It commits fully to what it is, a Swatch. So all in all, I think the Swatch Blancpain collab is a playful, symbolic and superbly designed plastic tribute that delivers maximum aesthetic and cultural impact for not an amazingly high financial output. I won't try and defend the price. I think it probably should be $100 or so cheaper, but you know what? It still remains a masterpiece of intentional and highly profitable ephemerality. And despite some reservations about the price, the reality is I've actually put my money where my mouth is here. I've already got 4 and there's every chance I'll be picking up more. So at this point, I'll turn it over to you. Do you agree with me that this is a knowingly hilarious jape that we can be in on and enjoy? Or do you think this is a soulless corporate cash grab? Do you wish these watches didn't exist? Do you wish that they did but were different in some way? Or like me, do you love them just the way they were or are? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm pretty much guaranteed of joining you down there so we can have a bit of an exchange. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's really good for the YouTube algorithm. It's really good for my self-esteem. That would be fantastic. And I will see you all later. Bye.